ultimately we'd love to be able to have a community of interested customers.
It would be awesome, yeah.
I think that a lot of what happens in these community efforts is that banks treat customer-sourced innovation and co-creation as a resource. So we'll bring customers in and we'll bleed them dry. And I think that it's a long-term relationship. I think if you're really going to get the best of collaborative creation of ideas, then it's about trust over time, and it's about relationships over time. And that probably means starting with small things. I think it's great to have an innovation project, fantastic, but to me it's a little like bar camps and jams. They're great fun, but it's very hard to get something long-term and lasting out of them. Long-term and lasting, I think, often comes from small incremental change, not from big change. So it might be about getting the basics right. So, you know, people today have talked a lot about, they haven't talked about big problems, they've talked about how difficult it is to change your address with a bank. So to me, crowdsourced collaboration should be about small things. What are the things that drive you crazy? And how can we change them? And what would that look like? Because I think that ultimately leads to the trust that allows you to do the much bigger and much more complex things. But it's like saying that you can have an overnight romance, get married and live happily ever after. For some people it can, but it's very unlikely.
Of course.
And I think that this is what banks approach co-creation like. It's a bit like, we'll fall in love, we'll have this great relationship, we'll get married, it'll all be fantastic, and then they get disappointed when it falls to pieces 3 months later. So I think it's about the ability, and I think also we have a very interesting process and we use Yammer. We use Yammer.
Oh, Yammer, yeah.
NAB.
Yeah, no, it's rolled out 40,000, pretty much everybody. You rolled out the wholesale division as well recently.
Yes.
Last 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
So we have Yammer internally, and at NAB it's been very interesting because it's been allowed to grow organically, and it's been owned by the business and by the people. And we've had very strong support. We have a lot of GMs and EGMs. We have the head of our wholesale banking who talks daily on Yammer. And what that's done is it's created a collaborative, open culture. And they tried to take Yammer away about 1.5 years ago.
Impossible, no way.
There was an absolute outcry. Okay. And what developed out of that was how can we measure the effectiveness of Yammer? So we came up with a post, which is Yammer Win. So
that's you as well. Your team has been involved in identifying.
Our team our team is, we work in social, we live in social. So for us, it's a natural place to be. The big thing has been bringing in other people, but Yammer Win has been rolled out across the whole business to the point where we now have frontline staff, EGMs. Every time something gets changed, or every time something gets fixed, or every time a question gets answered or a customer gets helped, it's tagged Yammer Win, which means that we can go back to our social and we can query and we can go, right, this is interesting because there's been 10,000 customer queries resolved. They've changed the onboarding process now and compliance for new staff to be using Yammer. And Yammer Win's become a really important way to reflect what's really a room full of mentors within an organisation, and it's been changed the way that the rest of our organisation sees social as well. Because we use Yammer internally, it's taken people who would never normally engage in social or see social as a sort of customer service channel. They've seen the viability of that.